What's up, juniors? All right, this lecture here is about the election of 1856, okay? And the election of 1856 is all about the question of Kansas, the violence that's broken out there between the Free Soilers and the pro-slavery faction, okay? And the question of whether or not Kansas will come into the Union as a free state or a slave state. Now, remember, the whole context here is that the majority of the population in Kansas at this point are free soilers. They want a free Kansas. So if popular sovereignty had reigned in Kansas, then you would have had a free Kansas. But the pro-slavery faction is committed to all sorts of voter fraud and voter intimidation in order to prevent the majority from having its way in Kansas. So again, another thing that you'll often hear about the Civil War, besides the fact that Southerners support states' rights, which of course we talked about a lot that they don't in the case of the Fugitive Slave Act, they also don't support popular sovereignty if we look at the Kansas situation, right? They don't want states to decide for themselves these questions. They want their way, and they're going to defend it any way they can through fraud and through violence, at least in terms of these Missouri ruffians who go into Kansas to try to control the situation. So all that's going on. They're trying to work out what's happening in Kansas, and everybody's like paying very close attention. It's a national issue what's happening in Kansas, okay? And it's going to define it's going to define the election of 1856. All right. So let's talk about that election. First of all, leading up to the election, there's an attempt within Congress to repeal the Kansas-Nebraska Act. That fails, all right? So you have at that point some Democrats from the North leaving the party and joining something called the American Party. The American Party was a xenophobic nativist party, meaning it supported a kind of like ethnic vision for what America was, that America was about Anglo-Saxon white people. And the nativists, some of them were anti-slavery, some of them were not. But what defined them as nativists was their opposition to immigration from Europe, particularly from Catholic countries like Ireland, where you had a lot of people coming into the United States in the late 1840s because of the potato famine. So the nativists want to shut down Catholic immigration. You've also got a sizable number of Catholics coming in from Germany, okay? So you have some of these people who are northern, who want to, who are anti-slavery, even though they're nativists, because they want to limit the influence that the Southerners have in Congress and the pro-slavery faction has in Congress. So some of them are leaving the Democrat Party, okay? But they themselves are going to be split up into two factions. So this American Party is going to divide between Southern people who promote slavery as well as the anti-Catholic policies, and Northerners who are anti-slavery but also against the Catholics. And the Northern American Party, a lot of them are going to vote for the Republican candidate, okay? So this is the first time in a presidential election you're getting a Republican candidate, okay? And the first national convention for the Republican Party is in 1856, and they have, as part of their platform, the majority of the platform is devoted to anti-slavery positions, particularly as they relate to Kansas and getting Kansas to come into the Union as a free state. So the problem for the Republicans, right, is that most of the Republicans, their main issue is they oppose slavery, they want to shut slavery down. They do not support, most of them, like Abraham Lincoln, does not support the anti-Catholic position of the nativists. But they want the Northern nativist votes, right? They want, so as part of their platform, they have to make some kind of statement about immigration and about public schools and religion, because some of what the nativists don't want is they don't want Catholics having any influence over education, right, because they're anti-Catholic. So you have sort of, in the Republican platform, the majority of it devoted to anti-slavery positions, but then one statement about, that's about immigration and about quote-unquote liberty of conscience. The point of this whole thing is that they're trying to craft a statement that doesn't say anything, right? That does not endorse the demands of the nativists, but that does not alienate them either, right? And this is kind of the big sort of the one thing that's the thing about that's problematic about the Republican Party is that there is this kind of underlying current of nativism within the party, but it's not the mainstream Republicans. The mainstream Republicans are simply trying to like get the votes from the northern nativists without being endorsing of those the anti-Catholic rhetoric or anti-immigration policies. Okay, so so that's all. That is to say there were going to be three candidates in this election of 1856: the Democrat candidate, and the Democrats choose like the most bland person they can, the most moderate person they can, because they're trying to attract the votes of Northerners in states like Pennsylvania and New Jersey, where you have moderates who don't really want federal intervention in the South, who don't really care about whether or not Kansas becomes a slave state, okay, and who want to maintain close ties with the Southerners, I guess, in order to maintain, you know, for some people who might be profiting from doing trade with the Southern slave owners. But in any case, they're more like moderates, okay? So Democrats nominate this moderate guy, Buchanan, okay, bland. The American Party nominates Millard Fillmore, who is only going to gather votes in the South from the nativists who are Southerners. And then you have the Republican nominee, who is this guy named John C. Fremont. And Fremont is going to rely on the anti-slavery vote, okay? The majority of which is a Republican, as well as some of the Northern American Party people, okay? And the guy, the John C. Fremont guy, he's an interesting guy because he's chosen because he was he's married to this girl who is the daughter of the enemy of Atchison, the leader of the ruffians from Missouri going into Kansas. So he's got kind of like solid ties to the Democrat Party that are against the violence of the pro-slavery faction in Kansas. So that's going to attract ex-Democrats who are upset about the whole Kansas thing, who are anti-slavery. He's also got a history of supporting the entrance of California as a free state, so that's going to solidify the anti-slavery vote. The problem for him in terms of his constituency was that his father had been a Catholic, and so some of the nativists who are voting for the Republican candidate are saying he's secretly a Catholic, don't vote for him. So that was kind of the problem for him, and that's probably why in the North he lost some of those votes, okay? Now, so in the South, basically the election is going to be between Buchanan and Fillmore. And in the North, the election is going to be between Fillmore and Fremont. And the Republicans are very energized. The abolitionists are very enthusiastic. They have this great slogan, which is, what is it? Free soil, free speech, free men, free mind. Oh, it's great. And they, you know, they got these parades and everything. And the Democrats are trying to portray themselves as the moderates, and they're saying the Republicans are extremists, and they promote racial equality, which is a good thing. But it, you know, most people in this period are racist, so the moderates, you know. So anyway, look, the and then you've got these nativists who are spewing out the anti-Catholic rhetoric. Okay, well, the problem for Fremont is that the northern vote is really divided between Buchanan, Fillmore, and Fremont. Okay, I misspoke a moment ago. In the North, Fillmore does not get any votes. It's between Buchanan, who only gets votes in the South. So in the North, they're voting between Buchanan and Fremont. Anyway, the Republic. So basically, Buchanan gets enough northern votes and is able to win like a few northern states: Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, California, New Jersey, moderate states. And that gives him the decisive victory. Because in the South, even though Fillmore gets a lot of votes, he only wins like one state or something. So Buchanan then wins the presidency, and he is tied to promoting the Southerners' interests in Kansas because that's what brought him into the presidency. And Fremont loses. Fremont loses because you had enough Northerners in the lower, in like Pennsylvania, Indiana, that place, that voted for Buchanan. and that shut him down. Okay. Look, I hope that made some sense. All right.